My wife cheated on me with my best friend, then suddenly claimed she owned half of our $1.2 million house and $300, $0 in our bank account. I just found out she forged my signature on a court document to sue me for half our assets. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, betrayed me with my best friend, Mark. Honestly, I always believed we had a solid marriage, or at least I thought we did. We had our ups and downs like everyone else, but I never suspected anything more than typical disagreements. That was until I started noticing small things, missed calls from her, weird late nights, and her suddenly being overly secretive about her phone. At first, I brushed it off as just work stress or her needing some space, but deep down, I felt a gnawing suspicion growing. Things changed about 2 months ago when I caught her in a lie. She told me she was at her sister's house, but I saw her car at Mark's place one night when I was coming back from a late shift. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept quiet, but I kept watching. Then I noticed her phone kept lighting up with texts from Mark, and she was deleting messages like her life depended on it. I started snooping, going through her social media and messages when she was asleep or out of town. That's when I saw it, screenshots, flirtatious messages, and outright explicit texts between them. They were talking about sex, about how much they wanted each other. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with my best friend. I felt numb at first, like I was outside my own body. Then came the anger, hot, uncontrollable rage that she could do this to me, to our family. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. We had a beautiful house, a life savings of over $1 million, and she was out there screwing my best friend behind my back. It was like everything I believed in was a lie. I remember the exact moment I decided I had to confront her. I sat her down one night and I told her I knew everything. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She laughed, said I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. She called me insecure, jealous, and said I was just overreacting because I was tired from work. But her eyes, cold, defensive, said everything. Everything at first, then tried to spin it as just a fling, a mistake she'd regret. But I had the proof. Screenshots, texts, and her own damn words. I felt betrayed not just as her husband, but as her partner, her confidant. How could she lie so easily? How could she pretend it was nothing? That night I was devastated. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My stomach was in knots. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, her laughter, her touch, the plans we made, and I wondered how she could be so callous. I was angry at Mark, too, for betraying me and for betraying our friendship. But mostly I was furious at Lisa for tearing apart what we built. I thought about the house, the savings, our future, and I realized I couldn't just let this go. I needed to do something about it, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that my world had changed overnight, and I was left trying to piece it back together, or maybe tear it apart. After that confrontation, everything felt like it was spinning out of control. Lisa sat there, smirking, acting like she hadn't just betrayed me in the worst way possible. She kept insisting it was just a mistake, that she loved me, and that Mark was just a stupid fling she'd regret. Yeah, right. I could see through her lies now. Her words were empty, her eyes darting around like she was planning her next move. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the evidence was too clear. She had forged my signature on some court document claiming she owned half of our house and half of our bank account, over $1.2 million in property and $300, $0 in savings. That was the moment I realized just how far she was willing to go to cover her tracks. I found the forged document when I was casually going through some old files, and my stomach dropped. My name was signed, but I never authorized that. Someone had gone into my office, tampered with my personal documents, and forged my signature. That's when I knew. She wasn't just cheating on me, she was actively trying to steal everything we had built together. The betrayal cut so deep it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I couldn't believe she was capable of that level of deception. I started to piece together how long she'd been planning this. The late nights, her secretive phone habits, the way she flared up when I asked questions. She was hiding something big. And now I saw it all. She was trying to take half of our assets, and I had no idea how long she'd been working on that scheme. My mind raced, trying to process what this meant for us, for our future. I felt sick thinking about her lying to my face, about her forging my signature, about the money she was trying to steal. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. I contacted my lawyer the next morning, demanding to see all the court documents and to put a stop to her plans. I also started digging into her finances, just to see what else she might have hidden. It was like unraveling a tangled web, and I was in the middle of it, feeling more betrayed than ever. I couldn't trust her anymore. Her bitchy attitude, the way she lied, the blatant manipulation, everything about her was different now. She'd gone from the woman I loved to someone I couldn't recognize, and I was furious that I'd been so blind for so long. That day, I realized I had to take control. I couldn't let her ruin us, not just financially but emotionally. I was hurt, angry, and feeling betrayed beyond words, but I also knew I couldn't let her win. Whatever came next, I had to be prepared. I had to protect what was mine, what I'd worked so hard for. The trust was gone, shattered into pieces, and I knew I'd never see her the same way again. I was about to start a war, not just for my assets but for my dignity. Over the next few days, everything moved fast, and honestly, I felt like I was living in some bad movie. I was trying to keep it together, but inside I was a mess, angry, hurt, and confused. I couldn't believe Lisa had gone this far, forging my signature, trying to claim half of our house and savings. It was like she was trying to erase me from her life, or maybe just trying to get her hands on everything I built. I started to question everything: how long she'd been planning this, how deep her lies went, and whether I even knew who she was anymore. I met with my lawyer the very next day. We went over the documents, and I demanded to know what my options were. The first thing we did was to file an emergency motion to freeze her assets and halt any legal proceedings she was trying to push through. I also ordered a full forensic audit of our bank accounts and our property records. I wanted to make sure she hadn't hidden anything else, and I needed proof to fight back. The lawyer warned me that she'd probably try to spin this as a misunderstanding, but I knew better. She had been lying from day one. Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting like she was the victim. That bitch was so good at lying, I swear she could fool the court if she wanted. She kept insisting she was innocent, that she was just trying to protect her rights, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure. She even had the nerve to say I was controlling and paranoid, like I was the one who'd betrayed her. The audacity. She'd become this really bitchy, manipulative person, throwing around accusations and trying to paint herself as the victim. But I saw through it. I knew her game now. She was desperate to keep her grip on everything, and she was willing to lie, forge, and cheat to do it. The most shocking part was discovering what she'd been up to behind my back, more than just the affair and the forged documents. I found out she'd been funneling money into secret accounts, probably to hide assets from the divorce or whatever she was planning. She'd been buying jewelry, designer clothes, even trips abroad, all with money I didn't know about. I felt like I'd been hit in the stomach all over again. How could she be so reckless, so selfish? It was like she was trying to drain us dry so she could run away with Mark or whoever she thought she could get. I also learned that she'd been telling her friends and family that I was the bad guy, that I was controlling and emotionally abusive. She painted herself as the victim, the wronged wife who was just trying to find her happiness, but I knew the truth. She was the one sneaking around, forging my signature and trying to take everything I worked for. I was furious that she'd gone so far, turning everyone against me. I started to see her for what she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who only cared about herself. And Mark. Well, I wasn't surprised to find out he'd been in on it all along, encouraging her, egging her on, probably hoping to get some piece of our wealth for himself. That realization made it even harder to hold it together. I trusted her, loved her, and now I was left with a mountain of lies, betrayal, and stolen money. I felt a mix of rage and despair, wondering how I'd ever come back from this. The house, our savings, everything. What was left of it was now I knew I had to stay strong for myself and for what was right. I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to fight, not just for My money, but for my dignity. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't do this to anyone else, that she'd face consequences for the lies and the manipulation. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it. The legal fight was just beginning, but I could already see how deep Lisa's lies went. She was throwing everything she had, accusations, fake tears, even trying to turn the kids against me. Yeah, she's that kind of woman, the one who can cry on cue and make herself look like the victim even when she's the one who's been screwing everyone over. It was infuriating. I knew I couldn't let her manipulate the situation, especially not with the kids involved. I had to be smart, calm, and strategic. One day, she showed up at my office unannounced, looking all bitchy and defensive. She had her usual smirk, trying to look innocent, but her eyes were cold. She started yelling about how I was ruining her life, how I was trying to take her away from her rights, and how she deserved half of everything because she was married to me for so long. I just stared at her, trying not to lose my temper. I told her flat out that she was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. I reminded her about the forged court documents, the secret accounts, and the affair with Mark. That shut her up for a second, but then she started crying fake tears, trying to guilt me into backing off. That's when I decided I needed to really hit her where it hurts, financially. I hired a private investigator to dig into her financial records, her phone, her emails. I wanted everything, proof of her deception, her secret accounts, her spending habits. I knew she'd try to spin this as me being controlling or paranoid, but I had the evidence now. I also started compiling a timeline of her lies, her manipulations, and her betrayal. I wanted to make sure I had everything ready for the court, for the divorce, and for her to see she couldn't get away with this. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude got even more bitchy. She started throwing tantrums, accusing me of trying to ruin her life and taking away her happiness. She'd scream at me, call me names, and even threaten to take the kids and run away. That made me angrier, but I stayed composed. I knew I had to be the bigger person, keep my cool, and let the law do its job. I also warned her that I was prepared to fight her for every penny, for custody if it came to that, and to expose her lies to everyone. I wasn't going to let her get away with stealing my money, destroying my reputation, or manipulating the situation anymore. One of the most shocking moments came when I found out she'd been telling her friends that I was an abusive, controlling husband who kept her locked up and didn't let her breathe. That's laughable now, but at the time, it made me sick. She was trying to make herself look like the victim, even as she was sneaking around, forging my signature and spending our money behind my back. I realized then that her entire image was built on lies, and I'd been the fool trusting her. It hurt to think about all the years I spent trying to make our marriage work, only to find out she'd been planning her escape with Mark all along. I also learned that Mark, my supposed best friend, had been feeding her lies, encouraging her to go after the house and the money. They'd been texting and planning behind my back for months. The betrayal was so deep, I couldn't even be mad anymore, just numb. I started to see that I'd lost a lot more than I thought. It wasn't just the money or the house. It was my trust, my faith in the people I thought I knew. I felt like I'd been played, used, and discarded. But I was determined to fight back, to take everything I could and make sure she paid for what she'd done. I told myself I'd come out of this stronger, even if it hurt like hell right now. I'd rebuild, I'd recover, and I'd make sure she couldn't get away with her lies. She was a manipulative bitch, but I was done being the nice guy. This was war, and I was ready to win. I still didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let her destroy me or my life without a fight. The court proceedings moved quickly after I filed the initial injunction. Lisa's attorney tried to spin it as a misunderstanding, claiming I was overreacting and that her claims to half the assets were baseless. That's when I presented the evidence, screenshots of her texts with Mark, the forged court document, proof of her secret accounts, and the forensic audit results. Seeing everything laid out like that, the judge looked skeptical of her story. I could tell she was starting to panic. Her bitchy attitude turned into outright desperation as she realized she was losing control of the situation. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior got even nastier. She started accusing me of all kinds of things, saying I was emotionally abusive, controlling, and even violent. She'd scream at me in front of the kids, calling me a monster, trying to turn them against me. That was the moment I realized her true colors. She wasn't the loving wife I thought I knew. She was a manipulative, lying bitch who would stop at nothing to get her way. I had to stay calm, stay focused, and let the legal system do its job. But inside, I was boiling with anger. One night, after a particularly heated argument, she threatened to take the kids and leave the state if I did. Back off. Her voice was high-pitched, full of venom. I looked at her and told her she was a liar and a thief, and that I would fight her for custody if she tried to run away with them. That seemed to scare her. She paused, then started crying fake tears again, saying I was trying to ruin her life. I knew then she was desperate, that she was trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. But I'd had enough. I was done playing nice. The biggest shock came when the court ordered a full forensic review of her financial accounts. That's when I found out she'd been hiding money, funneling it into offshore accounts, and spending lavishly on trips and luxury items. She'd been draining our savings, trying to leave me with nothing. I felt sick thinking about how she'd planned all of this behind my back. All those years we shared, and she was just using me to get rich quick. That's when I realized I had to fight not just for the house or the money, but for my reputation and my dignity. The final hearing was a whirlwind. Lisa sat there, bitchy as ever, trying to look innocent while her lawyer argued her case. I sat on the other side, calm but furious, ready to expose everything. When I laid out the evidence, explained how she forged my signature, manipulated the court, and lied about her assets. The judge listened carefully, and I could see her starting to believe me. It was clear Lisa's house of cards was collapsing. The court ordered her to pay back the stolen money, froze her assets, and set a timeline for the divorce. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief that justice might be served, but emptiness from the betrayal I'd endured. In the aftermath, I moved out of the house, leaving her with nothing but her lies. I started rebuilding my life, focusing on my kids, my work, and my own healing. I knew I'd never fully trust her again, but I also knew I deserved better. This whole experience taught me that the people you trust can sometimes betray you in the worst ways. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded, but also to stand up for myself. I want to warn others: never ignore the signs, and don't let anyone manipulate or steal from you. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. But at least now I know my worth, and I won't let anyone take that away from me again. Now that everything's settled, I spend a lot of time reflecting on how everything fell apart so quickly. I never thought I'd be that guy, someone betrayed so deeply by the woman I loved and trusted, and by my supposed best friend. It's a raw, painful experience, but honestly, it's also been a wake-up call. I realize now how blind I was, how much I ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. That illusion shattered, and I've had to confront some hard truths. People can hide their true selves, and sometimes those closest to you are the ones capable of the most profound betrayal. The aftermath has been a mixture of relief and rage. I feel relieved that I took control, fought for what's mine, and exposed her lies. I feel a kind of victory in knowing I won the legal battle, that I protected my assets, and that I'm moving forward without her dragging me down anymore. But I also carry a heavy weight of disappointment. I trusted her, loved her, and gave her everything. Yet she was planning her escape behind my back with Mark all along. That kind of betrayal leaves scars, and I know I'll carry them for a long time. Looking back, I see how her manipulative, bitchy attitude was a shield for her greed and her lies. She's a master at spinning stories, playing the victim, and twisting situations to her advantage. I realize now that I was just another pawn in her game. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I learned to stand my ground, to fight for myself and my kids, and not to let anyone steal my dignity. I've started to rebuild my life, piece by piece, focusing on the things that truly matter: my health, my children, and my future. To anyone going through something similar, I'd say this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the signs, no matter how small they seem. If something feels off, dig deeper. And never let anyone forge your signature or manipulate your assets. That's a violation that can ruin your life. Be prepared to fight, emotionally and legally, because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. And most importantly, don't blame yourself. People like Lisa and Mark, those manipulative, selfish types, are capable of anything. You can't fix them, but you can protect yourself and move on. As I close this chapter, I feel a strange sense of relief. It's not the ending I envisioned, but it's the one I've got. I've learned to be cautious, to value honesty, and to never take trust for granted. I've lost a lot, but I've gained clarity. I know now what I won't tolerate, and I know I'm capable of rebuilding a better, stronger life. And that's what I plan to do.